Number 11, permutation prediction. The following trick is well known to magicians. It has appeared in both mathematics journals and texts since the 19th century. Some variations of the trick are presented in further investigations. So, to perform the trick, you choose a volunteer and you give that person these instructions below. Write down a number consisting of 3 consecutive ascending digits, but don't tell me the number. So let's talk about this for a minute. 3 consecutive ascending digits. Consecutive means they come right after each other. 3, we know. Ascending means they're getting larger. So 3, 2, 1 is not going to work for this because these are going down. They are getting smaller in value, but 1, 2, 3 would work, and 3, 4, 5 would work. Any of those that are getting larger. Figure out all the possible arrangements of these digits and write them down. There will be 6 of them, including your original number. Add these numbers and divide the sum by 6. So this is what you're telling your volunteer. Number 2, have the volunteer reveal the quotient. And from this quotient, you are going to announce what the original number was. So, why does this work algebraically? So let's pretend that the volunteer chose 789. And the first thing you do is ask them to write down all the possible different arrangements. And you want to make sure in this that you tell them not to repeat a digit. So they can't have 788 when they are doing this. So you also tell them that there's going to be 6 different numbers that they should come up with. So I'm going to leave my value in my hundreds place alone, and I'm just going to switch these 2. So that is one possibility. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 8 and write it first, and the 7 and the 9 after that. And so again, I'm going to leave my 8 in the hundreds place, and I'm going to reverse these 2 places, these 2 digits. And then I've gotten all the possibilities with 7 being the first digit in the hundreds place with 8. So now I'm going to do 9. So I would have 978 and 987. So these are all the possibilities. These are the 6 that your person is working with. Then you ask them, after they do that, add these numbers and divide the sum by 6. So if I do them in a column, that's fine. I can also use a calculator. And look and see what my sum is. And my sum is 5,328. And I've already done this once, so I know that that's a correct sum. You always want to make sure when you use a calculator that you're keying in the information correctly. So I'm getting the same answer twice. So my sum of these numbers is equal to 5,328. The next instruction that you give your volunteer is to divide that by 6. So when I take my sum, and I divide by 6, which is the number of possible combinations here, I get 888. From this quotient, the volunteer is going to tell you, and from this quotient, you are going to predict or tell the number originally selected. Well, remember the number I originally selected was 789. And you can see that the number that the volunteer gets has an 8 in the tens column, but it also has an 8 in the hundreds and in the ones or units column. And you'll notice that if I subtract 1 from this digit, I would get a 7. If I leave this digit alone, it's an 8. And if I add 1 to this digit, I get a 9. And so mentally, when the person reveals this to you, you do that. You subtract 1 from the hundreds place, leave the tens place alone, and add 1 to the ones place or the units place. So what we want to figure out is algebraically why this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my number, 789, and I'm going to assign each digit an algebraic expression. So I'm going to refer to my 7 as A, or you could call it X if you wanted to. I'm using a different variable this time. And in terms of A, this time I'm not going to use different variables. I'm going to stick with my variable I have here. In terms of A, 8 would be A plus 1. And 9 would be A plus 2. And this is actually the expression that is used when you want to find the sum of 3 consecutive numbers. Sometimes a math problem will say the sum of 3 consecutive numbers is, 864. What are the 3 numbers? Well, you just, regardless of what the sum is, you can use this part, and this part because they're consecutive. Put a plus sign between them because the sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 864. Set it equal to 864, and then you can solve for the variable A, and then you can determine what the 3 numbers are. So we're going to use that same concept here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a place value chart. And I want you to do this too. If you haven't been writing up to this point, this is the part where you pick up that pencil. If Mrs. Porish is writing, I'm writing. Now, the ones place sometimes is referred to as the units place. So I just want to toss that little bit of vocabulary in for you. And I'm going to draw my columns. And up above, I'm going to write what each of these was in my original number. In other words, I had 789, which means I had 7 groups of 100, 8 groups of 10, 9 groups of 1. Over on the left-hand side, I'm going to write down what my permutations were. So I had 789, 798, 879, 897, 978, and 987. The order you write these right here doesn't matter. Okay, so when we look at what we are calling each of these digits in terms of a variable, we see that if I want to talk about 700, I am going to be talking about A. That's referring to this digit right here. My 8 would be A plus 1, and my 9 would be A plus 2. So all I'm doing down here is I am representing this number in terms of variable expressions using what I had decided up here. So again, I still have my 7 here. I am going to keep the A, but when I reverse my 9 and my 8, I'm going to reverse the place that these go in. So this is going to be A plus 2, and this is going to be A plus 1. Once we come down to the numbers that begin with 800, I have to look up at what 800 was. That was A plus 1. My 7 was my A, and my 9 was my A plus 2. And then, of course, in this one, I'm going to keep my A plus 1 in the hundreds column because I still have my 8 in the hundreds column. But my 9 is going to move over here, and my 7 is going to move over here. So I think you can see what's happening here. Go ahead and finish the column. I'm going to stop the video and continue the video on another